What is going down, everybody? Danny G here in the house. I hope everybody had a nice, wonderful, and safe Thanksgiving with your families. 2020 has been a rough year, so I really hope everyone was able to have a safe gathering with their families to celebrate Thanksgiving. And I don't like to make political videos, but when I see something so ridiculous and so stupid happening with the country that I love, the United States of America, I just cannot help but address it. Now, I know there's a lot of people that watch my videos that like Trump, and nothing but respect to all you guys. Shout out to all you guys. But can you really take your guy seriously when he refuses to do the one thing that every single losing presidential candidate and every single incumbent president that has lost has done, and that's take the L, concede to the winner, and move on. And Donald Trump just refuses to do that. Now, you might be saying, well, in 2016, a lot of Democrats were saying there was Russia collusion. That's the only reason he won. I personally never believed that. I thought that maybe Russia interfered with the way people voted by, getting info on Hillary Clinton and all that. But I never thought they had any impact on the votes themselves. I knew that Trump won that election in 2016 fair and square. Just like I know that Joe Biden won this election in 2020 fair and square. And now you might be saying, well, the media doesn't determine who the winner is. Well, in 2016 they did, so how is it any different now? I just don't get it. I just don't get why Donald Trump and a good majority of his base are such sore losers. I mean, it makes sense that Trump himself is a sore loser at anything. Like, at golf, just ask Mary Trump, his niece. She'll tell you that he's been a sore loser at a lot of things his whole life. If you don't know who Mary Trump is, that's his niece, who's been a big critic against him, who's written a bunch of books against him, and who's actually exposed the truth of who he is to a lot of Americans. Yeah, she'll tell you that he is a sore loser at anything. I mean, we all know that he is like that. So it's no surprise that when it comes to the presidential election, obviously he's going to be a sore loser. But I just don't get why his base, a good majority of his base, who of course they got to support him no matter what he does, are also not accepting their election results, especially when a good majority of them in 2016 were hating on Democrats for not being able to accept the election results, and now they're doing the exact same thing. All of the voter fraud, any kinds of accusations of voter fraud have all been debunked. Trump and Rudy Giuliani are just looking stupid throughout the entire country. Like, there was this, accusation during the election of Sharpie Gate in my state of Arizona. And it was later, of course, discovered that in October, there was a video on YouTube published talking about how Sharpies are okay to vote in and how they actually do the opposite of invalidating the ballots. They, in fact, make it easier for the machine to read because they're darker. Because the whole idea was in Maricopa County, in like the Republican base, cities, whatever, in Maricopa County, that they just gave voters who they expected to be Republicans, it expected them to vote for Trump, Sharpies instead of pens to vote with because it would invalidate their ballots. And that's been proven completely false because the Sharpies ended up making the ballots easier to read on the machines. It's just so ridiculous how so many people are just falling for this absolute bullshit conspiracy theories that have all been debunked and are absolutely going nowhere. But the sad thing is, Donald Trump, we kind of knew he would do this all along. Like, this is what he said a few weeks before the election.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election? And there has been rioting in Louisville, there's been rioting in many cities across this country, red and your so-called red and blue states. Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Talking about mail-in ballots not being legit, despite no evidence of that being the case, and saying that he's not even gonna, he doesn't even entertain the fact that he might have to have a transition. He always talks about is doing a continuation. And back in 2016, he says this, which at the time I just thought was a joke, and I don't think anyone was really supposed to take it seriously, but knowing what we know now, he was actually probably 100% serious about it.
I would like to promise and pledge to all of my voters and supporters, and to all of the people of the United States, that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
Oh, and it gets better. During election night, during the first night of election, and of course the election ended up taking about 4 to 5 days to fully be counted, this is what Trump says when addressing a bunch of his supporters in the White House with no masks and no social distancing.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election. It's a very sad moment. To me, this is a very sad moment, and we will win this. And as far as I'm concerned, we already have won it.
Is that what a president who's running for re-election does, or is that what a dictator does? He literally declares himself the winner when the election is far from being over. That should piss off any American, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Okay? There's just no excuse for that. There just absolutely isn't. I mean, yeah, we know he's a sore loser and just cannot accept defeat, whether it be golf or the presidential election or any game he ever played throughout his whole life, but that does not give him the right to act like that, okay? He needs to stop acting like a 5-year-old and just concede to Joe Biden and move on, okay? Because in 2016, Barack Obama obviously did not like the fact that Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. But you know what he did? He met with Donald Trump, they shook hands, and they talked for about an hour and a half, because that's what a peaceful transition is. They work together. Despite the fact that I have no respect for Donald Trump whatsoever, I still want him to meet with Joe Biden and have a peaceful transition, and for them, because the current president needs to meet with the president-elect so they can be on the same page, and so Trump can give any knowledge to Biden that he has of what's going on, and trust me, I don't think that he really has much to offer anyway in this case, but still, we still do need to have a transition. I mean, if he refuses to concede, what's going to happen on January 20th is he's going to be dragged out of the White House in handcuffs. Now, although that will be entertaining to see, that's just embarrassing for the country. That's just not something that I want to see. He needs to be a man, stop acting like a 5-year-old, and just concede. Like, it's just ridiculous. In 2016, I was not happy with the election results. I obviously did not vote for Donald Trump. I wasn't a big fan of Hillary Clinton either necessarily, but despite that, I was not happy that I thought it was a joke that a reality TV show host was going to be the president. But regardless, I still accepted the election results, and I said that I would support him as an American, as a president. And, that lasted about until he started acting like a child and, not acting presidential, still making ridiculous claims on Twitter after being elected president. Which he's done for years and years prior to that. I mean, just look at the ridiculous shit he said about, Mac Miller and and how ungrateful he was that he made a song about him. Like, he treats him like garbage. That's just who he is as a person. I just don't know why anyone would have wanted him to run in this country in the first place, just on the shit that he's tweeted for years and who he's proven to be as a person, making ridiculous claims that President Barack Obama was not born in the United States when he was born in Hawaii, and obviously that's a racist, conspiracy theory that, he never even apologized for, even after, taking over him as president. It's just so ridiculous, like, who he is as a person and how he even got there in the first place. But despite all that, I still was willing to support him as an American because as an American, I like to support the president no matter if I voted for them or not, if they're on my political side or not, okay? That's basically how I view it. And yet, a lot of his supporters, his diehard supporters, that just cannot accept the election results, they're not going to do that. And of course, he himself is not going to accept the election results, I don't think. I mean, I just, like his... Emily Murphy, part of his General Service Administrative team, did agree to start the transition in some ways, like, but it's still not going to be a transition like any other, because any other transition has the current president and the president-elect sitting down and getting together and talking about all the issues that need to be talked about. And it's just sad that that's not going to happen this year, because, you know, Joe Biden and Trump, you know, they should be, you know, meeting together and having, like I said, they should be meeting and they should be discussing the issues and how they can both make the country better. But of course, Trump is just a sore loser, and he's going to say, oh, he won the election. And, you know, like, look at what he tweets a couple weeks ago right here. Like, look at that. Like, I mean, like, what? And of course, he has a bunch of other tweets saying that he won in some other ways, of course. I mean, hey, the Niners won the Super Bowl last year, didn't they? No, I wish they did, but no, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? I crowed up and I accepted the defeat, okay? Donald Trump just cannot accept the defeat. By the way, how hilarious is it that Georgia, just like how the Falcons, of course, blew the 28-3 lead to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and of course how the Falcons have blown so many games this year, and unfortunately how the Braves blew that 3-1 series lead to the Dodgers. Of course, Georgia blows a big lead because Trump was ahead and then Biden came back. I mean, I love hilarious coincidences like that. But anyway, like, I just don't understand why he can't accept defeat, and why a good majority of his base just cannot accept defeat. And of course, he tweets this video, you know, of course I'm showing a bunch of his ridiculous tweets right here. One of them is this video of Tucker Carlson, you know, saying that the Democrats tried to change the way people voted because of the pandemic. The only way the pandemic would have changed how anybody voted is because of the fact that some people that may have wanted to vote for Trump before wouldn't have voted for him because of how poorly he mishandled the COVID-19 pandemic, not listening to the scientists, not listening to the experts, not shutting down when he was supposed to. Like, I'm not going to say it's fair to blame all the deaths on him, because it's not, but to say that he, you know, definitely made it worse than it could have been, because look at all the other countries, that is a fair fact, okay? It just truly is. Like, there's idiots out there, including, unfortunately, like a former San Francisco Giants player who I used to, you know, look up to back in 2010. Of course, he helped win the first World Series for the Giants, who these last couple of years has just proven to be an absolute idiot, an absolute dumbass. It has nothing to do with his political views, because there's a bunch of Trump supporters that I'm friends with, I respect, but this guy, and it pains me to say this because I used to, you know, be a big fan of him as a Giants fan, Aubrey Huff is just an absolute jackass, an absolute idiot. Like, he's one of the, you know, few people that actually believe that somehow the coronavirus pandemic started because people wanted Trump out of office, even though the pandemic is going on not just in the United States of America, but in the entire fucking world, okay? I just don't get why there's people dumb enough to believe that. And that goes to people saying that somehow, you know, I guess Tucker Carlson tried to say that, you know, because of the pandemic, you know, it tried to change the way that people voted, because more people voted by mail because they didn't want to vote in person during a pandemic. Like, my vote, you know, I actually did kind of want to vote in person, but I was listed to vote by mail. So in Arizona, I voted by mail, but then I dropped my ballot off at the courthouse. So should my ballot not count because it was a mail-in ballot? Like, I just don't understand that. Like, and it should make perfect sense that most of the mail-in ballots were votes for Biden and not for Trump, because Trump literally told his supporters not to vote by mail. Like, I just don't get why people just cannot put that logic together and realize that obviously more people voted by mail for Biden than they would have for Trump. Now, Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, who I still have respect for, because after 9/11, he helped, you know, clean up the city of New York. He helped out the survivors, and he was considered America's mayor, and he was considered a national hero. And now, of course, I was only 4 years old during 9/11, but I still know what impact Rudy Giuliani had on 9/11. So for that, I still do respect him. But the 2020 version of Rudy Giuliani, the Donald Trump's personal attorney version of Rudy Giuliani, is just an absolute joke. I mean, look at him. Look at that hair dye go off on his face when he's spouting bullshit. I mean, oh my god. So anyway, this I'm going to show you and read to you the actual court document that when he tried to testify in court in Pennsylvania, this is what they told him. Pending before this court are various motions to dismiss plaintiff's first amended complaint. Plaintiffs in this matter are Donald J. Trump for President, Incorporated, the Trump Campaign, and two voters, John Henry and Lawrence Roberts, the individual plaintiffs. Defendants who filed these motions to dismiss include 7 Pennsylvania counties, the defendant counties, as well as Secretary of Commonwealth Katie Bachvar. In this action, the Trump campaign and individual plaintiffs seek to discard millions of votes legally cast by Pennsylvanians from all corners, from Greene County to Pike County, and everywhere in between. In other words, plaintiffs ask this court to disenfranchise almost 7 million voters. This court has been unable to find any case in which a plaintiff has sought such a drastic remedy in the contest of an election in terms of the sheer volume of votes asked to be invalidated. One might expect that when seeking such startling outcome, a plaintiff would come formidably armed with compelling legal arguments and factual proof of rampant corruption, such that this court would have no option but to regrettably grant the proposed injunctive relief despite the impact it would have on such a large group of citizens. This has not happened. Instead, this court has been presented with stranded legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations unpled in this operative complaint and unsupported by evidence. In the United States of America, this cannot justify the disenfranchisement of a single voter, let alone all the voters of its 6th most populated state. Our people, laws, and institutions demand more. At bottom, plaintiffs have failed to meet their burden to state a claim upon which relief may be granted. Therefore, I grant defendants' motions and dismiss plaintiffs' actions with prejudice. And for those of you that don't know what met with prejudice means, that means that it's forbidden, that the plaintiff is forbidden at filing any other lawsuits based on the same claim. So basically it's saying that it's absolute bullshit, which it is. So I just don't get, how so many people are falling for this. Like, so many people watching this right now that actually believe that somehow this election was stolen and somehow, the Democrats cheated. I just don't get why people are this ignorant to believe that. Like, no, it has nothing to do with, being a sheep and following the media. It's following the facts. That's all it is. But anyway, that's all I got. Danny G is out. Peace, and I hope this triggers some people that just cannot accept the election results. Yes, Joe Biden is far from perfect, but he will be a uniter and not a divider. Danny G is out. Peace.